I think a lot of people think that it happens overnight. Realistically, it's not, and I think a lot of people don't mention is how hard you have to work and keep up in consistency. So I just think it really depends what you're passionate about, because if you don't love it, it's not gonna work, you're gonna burn out. It was 2.5 years of just doing this, and then you have to teach English, and then, you know, saving money, you're scrimmaging. Like, we weren't really living lavish.
You know, there's always people around saying, oh, that's not a career, what are you doing? You left being an accountant, what a stable job, he's gonna be such a stable man in your life, all these things, and you completely change it. Inevitably, one of you's probably gonna get an email or a message, and then it's back to work mode, right?
And especially if something goes wrong, one of us forgets to email the client, and it's so much easier to snap on someone that you're close to and that you love.
Yes.
You would never snap on a coworker.
Right.
So we are always trying to find the right balance, keep going at it, because your hard work will pay off.
So it's an emotional roller coaster, but worth it in the end.
Oh, for sure.
I love that.
I mean, it's been 6.5 years since we started.
And best decision you've made.
Best.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Laura Show. It's episode 42, and I have a great conversation in store for you because I know a lot of you are watching, and you're on the Instagrams, you're on the TikToks, you're on the YouTubes of the world, and you're seeing all of these digital content creators living their wildest dreams, particularly the ones who get to travel for a living, and you're thinking to yourself, how the hell do I get to do that? Well, we're gonna find out today because I have Claudia Nieroda here with me today. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And your page is called The Lost 2 on Instagram that you do with your husband?
Yes.
With your husband, Kaan, and who is also here today. That's why I pointed over here. So shout out to the husband in the back.
He's working right
Behind
now.
every digital content creator, there's a husband holding a camera, although he's on the content as well.
It's both of us, yeah.
It's both of you guys. So I love that, and I'm sure that brings up some interesting dynamics for you two. We're gonna get into all of it. But first and foremost, I kind of want to talk about what you were doing before you decided to go full tilt content creator and how that journey kind of started for you.
So basically, I unfortunately was not born as a trust fund baby, but
Damn
I always,
it.
I know.
Me either.
Damn, I actually have to work for a living. So I always loved to travel, and I always took every opportunity that I can. I signed up for an exchange at the University of Singapore, and Singapore is a fantastic place to do an exchange in university because your living is subsidized, and it's a great base to travel around Southeast Asia. So once I got the travel bug, it was nonstop for 3 or 4 years.
So you didn't have any fear about like living abroad and like missing your friends or anything?
Singapore is so safe, and because you are surrounded by people at your university that are like-minded and want to travel together. Of course I was nervous because I was leaving behind everyone I know. I've never been to Southeast Asia before, but it was an incredible experience. I worked at Earl's for 7 years.
Oh yeah.
So did a lot of late nights.
I love me some Earl's grub.
Oh, me too. I'm obsessed. I still go and eat there all the time. So I would always work like the 4 p.m. to 3 a.m. shift. Yeah. And that's when I would make a lot of money, and I'd work for 6 months at a time. And 6 months I'd go travel, do South America, go to Europe, do all of that. And I met him, my husband Kaan. So he actually was not a traveler.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you mean, like a homebody? What do we got
So when
here?
I asked him if, do you travel, like on our first date? And he's like, yeah, I go to Vegas, and you know, my family lives in LA. And I'm like, well, no, that's not
travel. Okay. That's travel to me, but so I get you, God, I get you.
But I was like, no, we got to change this up. I'm like, I see potential here. So one of the first, first month in, I bought him a backpack. And I'm like, we're going to Hawaii, and we're going to stay in hostels. Wow. And we're going to just like rent a car and do all that.
So you opened up his eyes to the world and what's possible.
And then Kaan was an accountant, he's a CPA, and so he would work during the busy season, and then he would get 4 months off. Right.
So busy like January through April,
and then
essentially,
June or May to September.
Right.
He could take off. Right. So we would start traveling, and our first like super big trip around the world started in Southeast Asia, because that's where the money is the longest, because it's so affordable, right?
Right. Okay. So you guys would kind of plan like, I have this in my budget, so where can I get the most bang for my buck?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Plus it being safe, and like I'm sure hostels in Singapore and around that are like nice.
Yeah,
compared to like Europe.
Yeah, they're super and cheaper.
Yeah.
And then we also like kind of we kind of run around the world. We went to Australia, Fiji, Sri Lanka, Turkey, we got engaged, and then we're like, you know, we have to make this an epic trip. So we signed up for a 1-month overlanding trip in East Africa.
So sorry, and this is when you were still working at Earl's.
Still working. Okay. Earl's, yeah. So we'd have to be calling our bosses and be like, by the way, we're gone for another month.
Right. I'm sure you were favorite colleagues to everyone else. Like, they're never working.
And I'd miss.
We were already being phasing out of it.
We were already just like.
Okay.
So we got back from this epic 4-month trip, and we're like, okay, you know, this isn't the life for us. We didn't thrive well in the corporate world, and I didn't like.
What didn't you like about maybe the corporate world or the typical world here in Canada?
I didn't like how.
You never worked in the corporate world.
Sorry, I didn't. But
well, he did. So he gave you his feedback. What was his feedback?
It was very mundane. It was the same thing every day, and it works for a lot of people, but that just did not fit well for us.
Right.
And we didn't have the flexibility to do what we really wanted to do and what we were passionate about. But we didn't know yet what we knew we weren't passionate about travel, but that's not sustainable.
Like, how do you make money traveling?
Money.
Like, this is so interesting. I love the world that we live in today because you can literally say, I'm passionate about X and go and make money doing X by creating content around it. And that was never the case before. People have options today. You don't have to go to school and become the accountant or the lawyer or the doctor and all the stereotypical things, climb up the corporate ladder. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Nothing wrong
with that. But if
with
you're
that.
like sitting there and you're like, I hate Sundays, the scary Sundays. That used to happen to me a lot too. I hated going to work. It was like counting down the hours. You know, when like you get to the office and you're like, surely it's lunchtime, and then you take a look at your watch and you're like, it's 10:15. Like, how is the day just not moving forward, right? And nowadays it's like, just try to figure out what you're passionate about and then do something about that.
For sure. And just as you said, we're really fortunate that this was in 2017, so we did, you know, the digital media was starting to start up and it was becoming kind of big. Because if this happened in 1995, we would have had to become, I don't know, journalists.
Travel agents.
It's
probably what happened, right? Or journalists,
Which are epic jobs, but this worked out so much better. So then we saved really hard for 8 months, and we're gonna take another 4-month trip. But on that 4-month trip, because we always love to create content, and we would shoot for photos on a Samsung Galaxy S5, I think.
Aww.
And back then, they didn't have like tripods for cell phones, so we'd have to buy a tripod, and then, you know, like the selfie stick mounts.
Yes, so were those people.
We would like combine it together, hardwire it together, and then all the photos were horizontal.
Okay. So,
then,
let's talk about this actually. This is, horizontal back then. I'm intrigued because I've just recently started doing more short form content, and it's 2024. Like, get with the program, Laura. Shame on me. But like, you know, I would do stories and stuff before, but it never seemed like something like, let me pose for a photo or let me like really take this seriously. So you guys were like, there is money to be made here, or were you doing the photos for fun as well?
We started it for fun, and then because our engagement photo went super viral in Cappadocia, that's when, like, you know, brands started reaching out, and we started getting like, not paid sponsorship, but barter exchanges, and people were sending us like watches and clothing and offering us, hey, do you want to come stay in my hotel for free? And we're like, okay, there's something behind this,
right?
Because you did have some influencers that were already making money back then, and we just knew like there is some way to go about this. But back then there wasn't really, like, now you can buy courses, and I feel like people are more open about it, but back then it was almost like a lot of people were almost gatekeeping, or they weren't really talking about it. So we're like, okay, let's try it out and let's see what happens. So that the second 4-month trip, the sabbatical that or the time off that he had, and I had, we were traveling the world, and we're like, you know, worst comes to worst, we're gonna, you know, at the end of the 4 months, if our Instagram nothing happens from it, we'll go to Australia and get the working visa, the working holiday visa that Canadians can get.
But it did work.
Well, we ended up in Bali. And we're like, we'll just stay here for 2 months. 2 months turned into 2 years.
For two years. When people start making content, right, and they think that they're, you know, obviously you had some, I'm going to call it a little bit of luck, because everyone needs a little bit of luck. So you do a piece of content, it goes viral. Obviously it was good and well thought out, and, you know, you guys are obviously, you know, easy on the eyes. So that was great too. And I'm sure who's the photographer in the group?
The accountant, Kaan.
Oh, okay. Got you. Okay.
He's actually the creative mastermind.
Interesting. So accounting was not his forte. That shouldn't have been it. That shouldn't have been
Completely
it, right?
opposite.
Because it helps to have that. Like, I try to get my husband to, like, hey, like, we're in front of the Eiffel Tower. Can you take a photo of me? But it's, like, the wrong angle. He doesn't care. He's embarrassed by it. I need my husband to learn that we can make some money here.
Listen, the embarrassment, you get kind of over it, but it's always subconsciously at the back of your mind.
It's cringy, right? When people see you and you're taking your content so seriously, no?
Yes, and you're like, but this is my job. It's a career, and it's not considered a career and a job to many people. But at the end of the day, like, this is my bread and butter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes you have people that are, awful. That they're like, they'll say things to you, or they'll get in the background of your photo and try to do like the what was it, the
peace sign or the
bunny?
Right.
Yeah, that was the other
Photo
week,
bombers.
and I was like.
Right, to
Cool.
try to, so you get home, you're like, well, A, I can Photoshop you out, but B, like,
B's
why?
also,
What's the point?
Because even if you're regular people on vacation taking a photo, like, why are you photobombing other people, like, ruining people's vacation?
It's so interesting, and I want to go into, like, the negative sides of it, but first I want to touch on when you get kind of like your first brand deal that comes in, because people are posting content, you're waiting and praying for something to happen, and then someone hits you up. It's not always going to be the big luxury brand or some well-defined brand. It might be kind of these smaller brands that are looking for content creators who have just started, because it kind of happens based on your following, I imagine. Were you guys like, who is this reaching out, and like, should we take them seriously? Like, was there some nerves around that?
For sure.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people think that it happens overnight. And I think that's the most common misconception. It's you have to be so, you're the 1% if it happens overnight. But realistically, it's not. And I think a lot of people don't mention is how hard you have to work and keep up in consistency. We would get a couple dollars here and there, but for the first 2 years, we taught English on the side,
That's how we funded ourselves.
That's how we funded ourselves.
Interesting.
Yeah, so there was a company called GoGoKid. It was owned by ByteDance, which is the owner of TikTok.
Yeah.
And they would hire native English speakers to teach English to kids in China.
Okay.
So that's what we did to fund ourselves
Right.
for 2 years. We were basically self-funded. Maybe people, they'd offer you like $100, and which is very, very low. But then after 2020, ironically, COVID, our business just took off.
Right.
But it was basically 2 years. Well, 2.5 years.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So you guys start creating content. You're doing the grind. How often were you posting
Every
at
day.
that time? Every single day.
Every single day for almost 2 years. Yeah.
And how many hours would you say you put into creating those posts every single day? Like 8 hours, 4 hours, 1 hour, 5 minutes?
Including the time of getting to the location,
Yeah.
setting up, the whole from 8
You're
to 8,
working-
at least 10 hours.
You're working at least 10 hours.
10
every
hours.
single
So
day.
10 hours every day is a full-time job to get one post out. And you were
Commenting,
also
building a brand, and we're for free.
free. And you were also then, after those 10 hours were over, teaching English to people.
Yes.
Okay.
So-
Okay, guys, so you see, it doesn't come easy. So everyone wants it to happen overnight, and I totally understand that, because I've been, I talk to my team about this a lot too. Like, guys, we've been doing it, it's the grind, and you expect something to happen, but sometimes nothing happens. And success is like that, right? It's nothing, and then suddenly something happens. But most people don't wait until that point. They can't have enough patience. So you guys,
Yeah. I think
did
if
it.
we were living in Toronto and try to make this, there's different types of niches in content creation, right? Like if you're doing fashion, you can do that from home, no problem. If you're doing makeup, beauty, lifestyle. But with travel specifically, we were very fortunate that we had the foresight to move to Bali, where it's cheap and you can create
Right.
content super easily. And you can wake up at 3 a.m, get to a waterfall for sunrise, 6 a.m, shoot your content, come back, edit, do all that stuff. While in Toronto, I think it would have been very difficult because you usually
Where
have to
are
get
you
on a plane.
yeah, you need nice backgrounds. Like
Yes.
not like, the concrete jungle in the middle of winter here in Toronto.
Which
is
works
not-
for lifestyle, no problem, go for
Yeah.
it. But for what we wanted, it wouldn't have worked out as well because once again, the trust fund situation.
Yes,
The lack
yes.
of the trust fund.
Would you recommend then people niche? Like if they want to become content creators, do you think that they should go down one specific path?
I just think it depends what kind of person you are. There's people who are lifestyle and they just show every part of their life. There's people who just want to do fashion and they don't want to do anything else. There's people who do the faceless.
Yeah, it's just their voiceover or
Just
something.
their voiceovers, yeah. So that also works. So I just think it really depends what you're passionate about, because if you don't love it, it's not going to work. You're going to burn out. Because remember, it was 2.5 years of just doing this, and then you have to teach English, and then, you know, saving money, you're scrimmaging. Like, we weren't really living lavish, right?
And I remember when we talked offline, you guys moved back from Bali, right? And you moved in with your parents, was it? So, right, you kind of have to put your tail between your legs a little bit too, and go, and the people who are, maybe even the naysayers in your life, I'm not sure if your parents were, but like, you know, there's always people around saying, oh, that's not a career. What are you doing? You left being an accountant. What a stable job. He's going to be such a stable man in your life. All these things. And you completely change it.
Yeah.
And then you also come back and say, and by the way, we're going to move back home, right?
Yeah.
And you have to, like, to your friends and the people, you know, we're always trying to, like, one up ourselves to our friends and, like, showcase how successful we are. And then this is something where you really have to humble yourself. Right?
For sure. And I think it helped that we were doing this together. And I'm sure my parents they're a bit more understanding, but Kaan's parents were like, you know, you threw away your whole career, what are you doing? But I think the last 2 years, they've been like, okay, this was so much better.
Right.
Or
They
maybe
needed
the
some
last
proof
year.
of
Yeah.
concept, right? Because
And it's hard to understand for people, right?
Yeah.
Especially, you know, like, how can you make money online? Like, people think that's crazy, right? It's such a foreign concept, especially for the older generations.
Yeah. It's a foreign concept for me, and I'm not an old, well, I don't know if I'm an older generation, but like it is, because it's just so against the traditional values that so many of us were raised with. Okay, who does the negotiating?
Me.
You do the negotiate. Okay, so he's the creative, you're the negotiator. So what happens? Like, so you'll get what, a DM on Instagram? Is that usually how it starts from a partner?
DM or email.
DM or email. Okay,
DM or
and how do
email.
you know the difference between like a spam kind of email that like this isn't going to amount to anything versus like something that's real?
I mean, it's hard because we have received some that are from like at gmails.com, and they ended up being great partners, super lucrative deals. So sometimes you can tell if it's a spam, like, you know, they're trying to get you to work on commissions, which we normally we tend to avoid. So sometimes you can tell, but sometimes we have to ask for more details.
Okay, and then usually that falls through the cracks a little bit.
Calls,
yeah. Okay, so you get on the phone and you talk to them.
Sometimes,
What's the
like,
strategy around pricing? Like, if someone starts out, you said $100 isn't a lot. So is there a kind of a price point that people should kind of start with for their first couple deals?
I think it's knowing your value, knowing what you can offer. But a lot of people think that, okay, you have 1 million followers, so you should be charging X, Y, Z. But that if you have 1 million followers, if your followers, you don't have a brand loyalty and they're not as connected to you,
okay,
someone with, I would say, 100,000 followers that has a super hardcore loyal audience is 10 times more valuable than someone with 1 million. So people think that it's trajectory. Linear.
Yeah.
Thank you. People think it's a linear thing, but it's not true. We have friends who have like a few million, and their price per post is way less than ours.
Gotcha.
So it really depends on the situation and what you value yourself. So we started off in like for $100, and we're like, you know, $100 in Bali, that goes a long way.
Okay.
So we're like, oh.
And at the start, like, you don't even really know.
have
So you're
no
like, let me
idea.
just bring something in, or I'll take free clothes. I'll take free.
Yeah.
I'll
And
take the watch. Like, you
of
know,
course, because-
you don't even have to pay me. This is fantastic.
And you're excited, right?
Right.
And then, you know, oh, free hotel stay, of course. And then, you know, free like flights, and you do it, but then you start to realize and you start to make friends in the industry, right? Because when we started off, we didn't have like influencer friends. Like you have to go out and make those.
Yeah.
So now we actually do have a management team that does handle these.
Okay, at some point you kind of like start to build your team out around this when the money starts coming in. Okay, this is very interesting information. What would you say are the highlights for you? What do you love most about being a content creator?
I think we've been able to experience things that not many people have the opportunity to in their lives. And
We've lived like 10 lives in the last like 4 years.
I feel like in the last month I've lived like 10 lives. I've been back and forth everywhere.
Well, the fact that you came in and you were like, I was in Dubai 2 weeks ago, and I'm like, oh, I was just there, and you're like, no, I was there like yesterday. I'm like, you came here after you were in Dubai? Like, I look like I got punched in the face when I got back, but here you are working, grinding, right?
Yeah,
So,
I mean, the jet lag, we woke up at 3 a.m. today, and I was like, I have to sleep at least until 6.
yeah,
because
try. Yeah, I know, because it's, what, 8 hours ahead?
9 hours.
9 hours, yeah, okay. So it's a lot, right? But it's allowed you to live all these lives, see all these things. What else?
I think being able to work with your partner is very, like, I'm very grateful for him. I'm grateful that he kind of believed in the vision. And when I came up with this crazy idea, he's like, yeah, let's try it out. Like, let me just throw away my whole career and let's try it out.
Did you guys have a safety net? Like, if it doesn't work,
it was
after this long?
Work in Australia.
Right. Yeah, you did say that.
I have my CPA.
Right, so you could still do that
So I go
in
back
other
to the
places.
office.
And I was like, fantastic, I'll work in a bar again and figure it out.
Right, and that's it too, right? Do some things kind of while you're young. You have the energy, you can build something.
Yeah.
And now, of course,
We did have savings though.
Okay.
We were saving for our wedding.
Yes.
So that was our savings.
Right, and then
yeah, I
but
mean,
then
a lot
you
of
spent
people
the money on the wedding, no? Not fully.
No, we cut back a lot on our wedding. You know what?
We
Also,
figured out we could teach English online.
yeah, so that was one
touch our
thing.
savings.
Yeah, we didn't really have to touch our savings. Also, we did have a lot of sponsorships for our wedding because that was 2 years after we started.
Okay.
So that really did help us a lot.
Okay.
But I think, I have a lot of people who, they want to try this and they approach me, but I'm like, listen, you need to have some kind of a safety net. Because if it doesn't work out, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do, right?
Yeah.
So whether that be, I know my career, I can fall back into it,
Mm-hmm.
there's lots of jobs, or you have maybe some money saved away for like a rainy day.
Yeah. Or because when I'd work in the bar until 3, 4 in the morning, and then I would come home, and that's when I was like we didn't just start our account the day we left Canada. We had started it maybe 6 months before, but very low key. Like we didn't tell our friends and family about it because it's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah.
Because you're starting off, you're posing,
And like you get like one like, and you're like, yay.
Yeah, so we didn't tell our friends. And, we had friends that started to figure it out because you know how they have this suggestion. For,
Yes.
Like if you're in the same
yes,
vicinity,
yes, and they're like,
people
wait
are
a
like,
minute.
"Is this you?"
Right.
And I'd be like, "Yes." Like,
Yes, it is
please.
me.
Like,
and now you're very proud, I'm sure, to say it.
Yeah,
Yes,
but-
it is me, damn it.
But it was very embarrassing. But I was the one who was editing in the beginning. So I'd go home and I'd like work till 7 in the morning just editing, like learning how to use Photoshop, Lightroom.
You YouTube that? Like what was your...
YouTube.
Yeah.
YouTube is a game changer.
I hear a lot of people, because we train real estate agents to do content. It's like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this. I'm like,
YouTube.
Google, YouTube. There's like so many things that you can
It's like a
do.
whole undergrad on YouTube.
Exactly, right? So like, you don't even need to though, right? You just like, you need a couple tools under your belt.
Yeah.
That that can allow you to do it. But now you have someone who edits for you? Or you guys
No.
still do it?
No,
you
that's
guys
still,
still do it.
so
Okay.
we still do the editing.
Yeah.
Kaan is very particular and,
Yes.
and he does such a great job, and I think you still like doing it, right?
Yeah, I do.
Well, maybe
He's doing it right now.
Maybe that's something that we
When the
get
algorithm
offered.
is in our favor, I love doing it.
Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know he's in the room, but what is one of the downfalls of working with your spouse?
Oh, so many. You're never really turn off, right? Because, for example, if you own a bakery and you work from 5 till 3 or whatever bakeries close, then you can kind of go home and you can reset. But here, because our life is almost like a reality TV show. We're constantly showcasing. Every day we're showing up on stories. We're talking about this. We're talking about that. So we're always like strategizing, like how can we do better. So I feel like because you're never off, it's very hard to switch back into like the partnership mode, like the romantic mode.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Because
Blurred line between relationship and business.
Blurred line between relationship and business. Yeah, I get that.
so
that would make sense.
it's very, very hard. And for example,
You have
if
to schedule everything. Intimate time, personal time. Otherwise, you just get lost.
Not intimate time, scheduling intimate. I hear you, I get it.
But, like-
and I'm just re-saying it because in case the mic's not picking it up, we should have had a third mic actually we don't have enough room on the couch for you, but it can be hard, right? Like relationships are hard as it is, let alone working with that person day in and day out. And then when it's time for yourselves, inevitably, one of you is probably going to get an email or a message, and then it's back to work mode, right?
and especially if something goes wrong, one of us forgets to email the client, or one of us, something happens.
Right.
And it's so much easier to snap on someone that you're close to and that you love.
Yes.
You would never snap on a coworker.
Right.
In this way.
Right.
So, or like not snap. But
Yes,
say,
the way we speak to our spouses is different than colleagues, right? Yes.
Yes, which is really bad, and it's not professional at all. But at the end of the day, I'm like, this is my husband.
Yeah.
So we are always trying to find the right balance.
Okay,
with
so
that.
we're working on it. Okay, I appreciate it. It's a work in progress.
It's a constant work in progress, right?
In terms of showing up and being on the camera all the time, I find it difficult just to will my way into, like, some days you don't feel good. You don't feel you look good. You feel tired. You're on your period, whatever it is. These are all real things that happen. But because this is your job, you have to just like get over it and do it. Is that kind of your mindset, or do you take particular care of yourself? Like, what's your kind of mindset around that?
I think to build a brand, you do have to show up every day. Regardless if you're in a bad mood or something happens, we very rarely will take a day off. But usually, for example, like I have horrible periods. So if it's it's a really bad day, I'm lucky that, and I'm fortunate that I have Kaan to pick up the slack.
Right. Yeah. So he gets to do content that day.
Yes. Or we have each other. If he's sick, then I'll take over.
Yeah.
He rarely gets sick though.
No, I find like just from having looked at your feed, like it's very like aesthetically pleasing. Like my content is a little bit more like raw. Like I'll showcase myself like no makeup, just woken up. Is that like you put a lot of time and effort into this? So you must schedule that in as well, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I think people don't realize is that when you are a content creator, you're your own makeup artist, hair, clothing, wardrobe. Like, yes, I have a lot of my stuff is sponsored, but I still have to go and pick it. And like, I know that sounds so like
it's still work though.
Problem, but I'm just like
you have to do it. It's a task on the task list.
Yeah, and for example, you know, if I'm going to Monaco, I have to make sure that my clothes like match the aesthetic of Monaco. If I'm flying back to the Maldives, I'm not gonna wear like a suit and a blazer in the Maldives. So I think you look at the resorts and you look at what the client's looking for that particular campaign, and you still have to go and pick out your own clothes. Whereas in like traditional media, you do have your hair and makeup person on set, you have wardrobe on set, stylist.
Yeah,
but here you're doing
people to help
everything. And I think people don't realize that. It's like you're doing every single thing.
Yes, and then if you're not, well, then your feed's going to look a certain way.
Yeah,
and that's okay too because that might be your brand.
For sure.
That
so
you're
we actually have a second account, Claudia and Kaan, just our names.
Yeah.
And it's more of like a local Ontario-based lifestyle account.
Okay.
So there we do show more behind the scenes and like more
a little more raw.
A little bit more raw. So we do have that. We've been playing around with that for the last year.
Is that fun? Because I when you're doing content that's very niche, do you kind of get a little bored of it, or not really?
It's hard to get bored of travel.
Okay, interesting. Because I think if you were doing content around like, I don't know, maybe doing your makeup every day, like how many times can we do our makeup? You know, so I was just curious, like, does it get like, I need to do something else. I need to like showcase other parts of myself.
You know, for example, we just got back from this crazy trip where we went from here to Maldives, to Dubai, to Rome, Sicily, all over, ended up in Lisbon, flew back to the Maldives, went back to Dubai, came back in Toronto. So that was like
I'm tired just listening to it.
Yeah, so that was probably a 32 days, I think we were gone. And we had a 2 day, like two days when my family came out to Sicily, break.
Right.
Like everything else was like nonstop work. So at one point you are like, I'm so tired of it. Like I'm tired of the beaches.
Like how many?
You're living out of a suitcase.
How many pictures or videos can I do in front of a beach? No,
so,
I don't know.
Sometimes you do.
I mean, I wouldn't get sick of that. That seems like right now.
But then I'm trying to be like,
times?
you know, you do get into that. Like sometimes you wake up and you're like, this is not my dream. But you have to realize that we're so fortunate to have this. So sometimes we have to take a step back and be like, oh my God, we are so lucky. And like so many people would kill for this. And so we try to practice being very grateful.
Yeah.
But of course, some days you are just like, you know, for example, we were invited to go to Hawaii next Monday.
Okay.
Right? So today's what? Wednesday.
Yeah.
So Monday we were invited to go to Hawaii and we're like, listen, like we can't.
So you have to learn to say no to some things as well.
Which is really hard because you don't want to say no because you never know in this industry what tomorrow brings. Like I think
it could be done tomorrow, right?
It could be done.
Completely dry up.
It's all project based, so you never really want to say no because you just never. Tomorrow is not certain, and I think that's harder than, for example, if you have like a stable career, when you have a stable paycheck. Because for us, we don't know when the next check is coming in.
Yeah.
Like of course we have like year-long contracts signed, but you don't like. COVID happened.
Well, yeah, you guys are business owners, right? You do your accounting, all your finances, and all your admin tasks. Like you run your own business, and that takes a lot of time and work, and it keeps you up at night because, again, you don't know. And plus, once you start hiring people, now you have the weight of the responsibility on your shoulders of keeping that person paying their paycheck, right? Like you
just never know. Like, what if? I mean, this is like what if the internet's gone tomorrow?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is very, very scary, but I think we've learned a lot of skills that are transferable.
But things change, right? Like even Instagram, for example. When you first started, were you doing mostly photos?
It was only photos.
And now you have to do reels, right? So that
when we started, there wasn't even, I don't think stories were really a thing. Even.
Was that hard for you to go from photos to reels, like putting like your voice?
So we thought it would be, and then we ended up being like, I think we're better at reels.
Oh,
I
interesting.
honestly think like Kaan loves photography, but I think videos allow yourself to express, like you can express yourself more.
Okay.
You can show more of whatever. Tell a story better than through photos.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
You can connect with people better, in my opinion.
Any big mistakes that you've made along the way? Like either like a post that was like, whoops, we posted too soon, we posted at the wrong time, we didn't feel, you know.
Not with that. We try to be very considerate, especially with, you know, people's sensitivity to things. So like, for example, on our pages, we don't speak up about any political issues or anything like that. We just keep
that personal.
Yeah. So we've
have you ever gotten any pressure from people though?
All the time.
Yeah. Okay. That makes me interested because once
you
get big, people are like, "Well, you have a platform. You should say something."
So I think you can go about it 2 ways. You can either talk about every single thing that's going wrong, every single thing.
There's a lot of them.
And there's a lot of them. So I'm gonna be my new page is gonna be CP24.
Right.
So I can turn into a news, or I don't really touch on anything.
Right. And that's a good choice. That's a good decision.
Escape reality.
Yeah.
And get lost in like the travels.
Yeah, so what Kaan's saying offline is that people escape reality. That's why they come here. And that's interesting when you're very specific about your brand and what you want to showcase online. Like you guys are a travel brand, so to speak. So it's like, well, think about what people want when they're traveling. They're trying to escape their lives. They're trying to escape the doom and gloom. They're trying to have fun.
Yeah,
right?
And we have people who are like, when are you going to make a statement? And I'm like, sorry, I didn't know that Mr. Joe Biden is going to be tuning in to see what my statement about any world issue. I'm like,
people are requiring it from you.
Yeah,
so
I understand you do have responsibility because you are given a platform.
Yeah.
But just because we're not talking about it doesn't mean that we're not helping.
Hey, you can do things behind the scenes
too. You can do behind the scenes. Like we post like, you know, donation links or whatever, like vetted organizations.
Yeah.
But personally, I just don't think Kaan and I opinions are, like, we're not politicians.
Right. And so keep it to yourself. I like that. Well, and like to each their own, but if that is the avenue you want to go, do it. But you're not required to do it.
Yeah,
right?
We have friends that are very passionate about certain things, topics, and, you know, go for it.
Yeah.
But for us, I just think it's better.
You want to stay in your lane. When you start to stand up for something, you could lose some of your followers, but B, some of the people who are like, well, you've said this now, we can't support you because behind the scenes we're supporting this. So there's never a right answer. And I'm curious, trolls, you must get a boatload of them. How do you deal with that emotionally?
I don't think it hasn't been.
It doesn't impact us.
Okay, I mean,
really, you troll back?
No,
I'm curious.
Kaan does.
I'm curious.
So sometimes no, you do get. I mean, Kaan does. I feel like he filters some of the mean comments that I get about me.
Okay.
I'm a little bit more self-conscious.
Yes.
For sure. People, they just love to, you know, pick women apart.
It's insane, isn't it?
It's insane. And some
what,
of the
where
comments,
they zoom in and then they're like,
oh,
this, that, and the other about your body or something?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it's always...
That's hard to deal with.
It is. And you know, you get those messages, especially on Facebook. If you ever go on Facebook, people are awful in the comments.
Really?
Yeah, and it's like, but the thing is, like on TikTok, okay, it's probably a 15-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And it's like username 12345 who's never posted
on Facebook,
anything.
It's like a real
person,
adult with a family, and I'm just like...
But they're usually like 60 years old and they're like sitting on a couch.
They're angry, bitter, maybe a little bit.
I'm like, oh, this is awful.
So what do you try to just tell yourself, like...
I delete them.
Okay.
We try to delete it. Kaan sometimes argues a little bit back, keeps it spicy.
It sends the post viral.
Well, that's what's helpful too, right? Sometimes the comments, you're like, thanks for helping me out.
And you always remember that someone's always going to pick about find an issue with anything. Everything you say. Anything you say. Like even sometimes, like, you know, for example, if we post support of, for example, the floods, I'm Polish, so the floods in Poland, people be like, but you're not posting about South Sudan.
Right.
Yes.
Right. You're not doing enough. If you do anything, you should be doing everything.
Yes.
Right? You should be saying something about everything, and there's so many problems to talk about.
Because I'm the Red Cross.
You can't take on the world's problems as your own. As we kind of wrap up here, because I mean, I could probably really honestly talk to you two all day, because this is very, very interesting to me. But I want to kind of leave our listeners and our viewers with like, who are sitting here like, this sounds great. Screw the trolls, I'll be fine, because a lot of people think that they're going to be fine with it.
You always think that.
I know.
And then you get one that really tugs your heart.
It really hurts. Like, and I wish I was over it and better and rose above, but I'm like, sometimes I go home and I'm like, that hurts my feelings.
Because you can
like,
get 100 good comments and one is super mean.
It's only the bad one,
And I think it's a human thing.
Yeah.
I think it's a human thing. And people are like, it doesn't bother you, but sometimes people say awful things.
Awful things. It's insane. So besides that, what would you say is the number one or two tips that you would maybe say to an audience of people who are like getting started, they're unsure, but they see themselves like you one day? What should they do?
I think it's consistency.
Start posting.
Doesn't matter if it's like, if you go down to our earlier page, I mean, we're shooting on a Samsung Galaxy, okay? Yeah. The quality was not there.
and don't wait for the right time.
There's never a right time.
Oh, interesting.
There's never going to be a right time. Yesterday, you know what they say, yesterday was the best time to start.
Yes. Yes, I always tell people when investing in real estate, like, yeah, you should have bought 10 years ago, but the next best time is now.
Yeah.
Right?
So like when we started, we'd post photos from like the Toronto Islands because we weren't able to travel, and then we'd only do like weekend trips or like trips to like, you know, camping, Algonquin, Arrowhead. We'd do those things.
Yeah.
But
you don't necessarily have to live this lavish lifestyle yet, because people are like, well, once I'm rich and I get to travel, then I'll post. But it's like, no, that's how you do it.
We started as backpackers.
Yeah. You were saying living in hostels and staying in hostels.
So
no one was paying for your Four Seasons beachfront access, right? And now you get to live the life that you're living today because of the hardships that you went through. So I love that. Those are great tips to start.
And I think like even when you are self-doubting, I mean, we have self-doubts every day. You know, being an entrepreneur, it's hard. Like you feel loneliness. It's hard to connect with some of your friends. You know, you're always self-doubting. You're always feeling like I could be doing better. We do have days where, you know, I'm crying because I'm like, this should have done better. We should be like, you know, our trajectory, I thought it'd be a little bit better.
And it goes up and down, right? So right when you're like, we've hit it, and then all of a sudden, you didn't hit it, and then next week it's like crickets out there, right?
Exactly. But I think it's just keep going at it because your hard work will pay off.
So it's an emotional roller coaster, but worth it in the end.
Oh, for sure.
I love that.
I mean, it's been 6.5 years since we started.
And best decision you've made.
Best.
Well, I love that. Thank you so much for being here. I got to give a special shout out to my girl Tilly, who works with us behind the scenes. She couldn't be here for the recording today, but she put us together. She's your cousin, yes?
Yeah.
Which is so amazing. And like, that's also the beauty about content, is the neat and interesting people that you get to meet along the way.
For sure. We've made lifelong friends in this industry, and you have the same mindset too, which is amazing.
And that's what I think the world's all about, trying to find your place in the world and the people that you belong with, which isn't necessarily the people that you went to high school with, right? Yeah. So put out the content, get started,
start today,
and do it around a topic you're passionate about, and see where it goes. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Kaan, as well. Appreciate you guys. And to everyone watching and listening, we'll see you next time.